Good evening and thanks for joining us. Hong Kong reported 523 new COVID cases today, a slight decline from yesterday, and finally a return to the single-digit level for the city's COVID-related death toll. It's the second day the city's COVID tally has stayed below 600. New infections detected by rapid antigen tests and nucleic acid tests each take up around half of today's COVID case counts. 7 more COVID patients died, marking a return to the single-digit level in the daily death toll. Among the 299 schools returning to in-person classes this week, 15 students and staff members came down with the virus.
We checked the record on whether the students have been to schools before. We found that actually many students were found positive before the first day of school. We would treat them as unlinked cases. As long as the schools are vigilant in the health, I'm sure that we'll be able to identify the cases early.
For today's Diploma of Secondary Education exam, one student requested a special exam room at the Penny's Bay Isolation Center. For imported cases, authorities said the average number has dropped to 1% of the overall tally. With the flight bans eased and non-local travelers set to be allowed back into the SAR next week, the government said the current quarantine and screening measures are believed to be effective in keeping imported infections at bay. Authorities will also closely monitor if there are any rebounds in cases before deciding whether social distancing measures will be further relaxed. Today marks the start of the first weekend after the city's social distancing measures were relaxed. Many Hong Kongers could be seen out and about. In Mong Kok, streets are bustling with shoppers, and cinemas have reopened their doors for movie lovers. Also making a comeback are the first local tours in many months. The Travel Industry Council said there are about a dozen small local sightseeing trips, with less than 30 participants this weekend. Some participants said given it's impossible to travel abroad now, that could help quench some wanderlust. But for overseas tours, the Travel Industry Council said their return is unlikely anytime soon. Despite some relaxations of the anti-pandemic rules, the 7-day quarantine mandate is still in place. The council said only when the border reopens would the travel industry be revived. The government health advisor said about 4 million people in Hong Kong could have been infected with the virus in the 5th wave of COVID-19. He expects there will not be a significant upsurge as millions of people are now having antibodies against the virus.
Well, we have not encountered any upsurge after the Easter holiday. I think that is because in the last few months we have more than 1.1 million people being confirmed to have COVID. And for every confirmed case, there are actually at least three or four cases that have been found to be infected. So in other words, probably more than 4 million people in Hong Kong have been infected, right? And they do have some immunity after being infected.
Professor David Hui also said vaccination rates are key in determining whether daily rapid testing for students can come to an end. Tam Yu Chung, director of Chief Executive Election candidate John Lee's campaign office, said Lee is expected to finish drafting his political platform by the end of the month. Tam also said Lee will later comment on whether he sees a need to create the posts of Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration and Deputy Financial Secretary. Tam added that the deputy secretaries will be helpful in coordinating and speeding up work that involves multiple government departments. Tam refused to unveil further details, urging the public to see if the answer will be in the next policy address. The police have arrested a 30-year-old driver after pursuing him from Ngau Chi Wan to Sai Kung late last night. The driver was arrested on 6 charges, including driving under the influence of drugs. Keqings has more.
The white 7-seater vehicle went out of control and slammed into a crash barrier when it reached Tai O Mun Road in Sai Kung near Clearwater Bay Second Beach. The vehicle was severely damaged after the chase, with many parts of it coming loose. Police officers handcuffed the vehicle's 30-year-old driver and searched the vehicle. The incident happened at around 11 p.m. on Friday when the police spotted the vehicle crossing a double solid line on Longcheng Road at Ngao Chiwan. Police officers attempted to stop and search the vehicle, but the vehicle sped towards Sai Kung, which triggered the police chase. When the vehicle reached a dead end on Potoi Old Chin Road in Sai Kung, it first slammed into a car and then collided with a police car when it reversed. The vehicle also hit a police officer, who was later taken to hospital with shoulder injuries. It is understood that at least one police officer had pulled out his gun during the incident. After a 20-kilometer chase, the 7-seater finally stopped after it slammed into a crash barrier near Clearwater Bay Second Beach. The driver was arrested on 6 charges, including furious driving and driving under the influence of drugs. He was detained by the police, but the female passenger escaped. KW TVB News.
Welcome back. In Ukraine, Russian troops continue to press their offensive in the eastern Donbas region in an attempt to fully seize the country's industrial heartland. But they are finding headway difficult to make as Ukrainian counterattacks have slowed their efforts. Alan Buknia reports.
Russia continues to fight for full control of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions that make up the Donbas. The aim is to secure a land route between these areas and occupied Crimea, which Russia seized from Ukraine in 2014. But Ukraine's general staff said in the past day its forces repelled 8 Russian attacks in the 2 regions, destroying 9 tanks and 18 armored units and vehicles. Russia has pulled a dozen crack military units from nearby Mariupol to bolster the offensive. About 100,000 people out of a population of 430,000 are believed to be trapped in the city with little food or water. And Russian forces continue to pound away at Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine. Ukraine's defense ministry said residential areas are being targeted. Russia claims it destroyed 3 Ukrainian helicopters in the fighting. While Kharkiv is outside the Donbas, which the Kremlin has declared the main theater of the war, it is seen as one of the gateways the Russians intend to use to encircle the Donbas from the north. Alan Buknia, TVB News.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met with Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. The meeting comes after the Prime Minister concluded talks with several senior U.S. officials.
This is the first visit since the Russian aggression by a senior official of the Ukrainian government, further evidence that an independent, sovereign Ukraine is going to be around a lot longer than Vladimir Putin.
We are really grateful to you and to your people, to your country, for support of us before the face of this bloody war from Russian side. So they really make atrocities, they make war crimes in our country, but we have support of all civilized world.
The Ukrainian Prime Minister said his government needs 4 things: weapons, strong sanctions, money for the economy, and European perspectives, because Ukraine wants to be part of the European family, not part of the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire. Earlier this week, U.S. President Joe Biden pledged a new package of $800 million in military aid. The European Union has reached a landmark deal to take aim at hate speech, disinformation, and other harmful online content. The Digital Services Act is set to rein in Alphabet unit, Google, Meta, and other U.S. tech giants. The companies face fines up to 6% of their global turnover for violating the rules. Repeated breaches could see them banned from doing business in the EU. The new rules also ban targeted advertising aimed at children or based on sensitive data, such as religion, gender, race, and political opinions. A senior-level U.S. delegation met the Solomon Islands leader on Friday. The delegation warned that Washington would have significant concerns and respond accordingly to any steps to establish a permanent Chinese military presence in the Pacific island nation. Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare reiterated that there would be no military base and no long-term presence under a security deal signed with China. China's ambassador to the Solomon Islands, Li Ming, said Beijing will never infringe on the sovereignty and internal politics of the Solomon Islands. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.